I don't see us, but then I don't. Oh, I'm live. We're live. Hello.
We are live. Okay, awesome. So yes,
Yay.
still new system, still figuring out the timing on all this stuff. Sorry, we're a little bit late. Today is a jam-packed day for us in the business as well. But just to introduce us today, my name is Phelan. I work with Pip at Seymour Digital Media, where we focus on search engine marketing.
Yeah. This
And
is so interesting.
and,
It's
and who are you?
I'm Pip, and I'm sorry. It's we're using on the back end of Ecamm. We're using a new system. We're using instead of Restream, we moved to what?
Switchboard Cloud.
Switch, Switchboard Cloud. So we're trying something new. So the back end's different. Um, and yeah, so today, before we get started failing, I wanted to talk
Mm-hmm.
about how an email went out to all the people in the group talking about Rena's happy hour being today. It's not today. That's Geek Speak. Happy hours on Friday. So I just want to say, anybody who got that email, I'm ever so sorry. And we're correcting the problem right now. Now we can
Mm-hmm.
get back to our featured program. It's so weird. I like
All
seeing you side by side with me.
Oh, well, this is part of the new fun. There's changes. Things are always changing. And so yeah. So today we are talking about schema. What is it and why you should be using it?
Ooh. So it's a bit of a it's so this isn't beginner stuff, I'd say. It's not
No.
beginner. But
Uh,
if you're joining us, say hi.
mhm.
Um, and if you don't know what schema is, well, what is it, Fallon?
Well, schema is it's a little bit. It's kind of a bit of code that you put on the head part of your website so that it enables like Google and other search engines to figure out stuff about what's on the page. Um, and as we get into there's thousands of different types that you can put in for different schemas. Some of the For a couple of examples of recipes, if you ever go type in like black bean burger recipe and you see the little carousel at the top that's got an image, it's got the ratings, it's got the name, that was all done with schema. And so anytime you're seeing something more than a page title and meta description, it's probably with schema that put it there.
Interesting. We actually teach this in our mastermind program.
Mm-hmm.
It is in the I think the third or fourth semester. Yes, there's semesters, but it's I always explain it in this way. I try to simplify it, which is it's Google can't read your website or the search engines can't read your website. And as marketers, you probably already know this, but I'm just doing it for the people that don't know. Um, but they can't read your website. They don't know your phone number is your phone number. They don't know your address is your address. They don't know what type of business you have. Um, and yes, at some point Google does figure out some stuff, but using schema, so putting this little bit of code in the head tag of your website, you are telling Google before it reads your page what your website's about. Like hey, this is my phone number. Hey, these are my reviews. I'm this type of business. And so it can really benefit businesses. I know that Shopify out of the box does some schema for you. You should check it. But that's a helpful thing they do, isn't it, Phelan?
Yeah, I was gonna say when I was reviewing stuff for this live, one of the big ones that did come up that is essential for you is getting your schema done if you're doing e-commerce. It is
Mm.
critical that you test it. There's a tool I'll leave a link to in the comments, but it's called Rich Snippet Tester, and it will let you put it through, and it goes, "Oh, this is all working perfectly," and we know that it's a product. And then you could see that double check what the product is, like the name, the price, all that good stuff. So definitely test it. Like Pip said, most of the Shopify themes out of the box will do this. So you don't have to stress about that part, but it's always good to test. You don't want to assume that it isn't. And this is also really important for Google when you do the free listings. So the shopping,
Mm.
you need to
Ah,
make
yes,
sure.
but yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
you'll. Yeah, you definitely want to test because that's where you're going to get a lot of errors if you don't have it set up correctly or if the price is like not in the right place, then
Mm.
it will really mess up with Google.
So out of the so you know, if you do have a Shopify website, you don't necessarily have to worry out of the box. And I know some plugins for WordPress, I think if you pay for the paid version of Yoast or Rank Math, they actually have um in a portion they'll do some of your schema for you. Now we've seen a site where it didn't work what they did, and this is pretty advanced stuff. Like, what took us 3 or 4 or 5 years to learn this stuff, and I'd say
Yeah.
you're more of the expert than I am. um if you're anything like me, you might get overwhelmed if you see code and red, and you might not sit still long enough to read what's actually going on. But if you do read what's going on, you learn something. So schema has looks like a lot of code, right?
Yeah. I mean, it is code. It's just it's a big object, which is the one with the curly braces, and it's
And
just like
technically, you're just going and copying it from somewhere and changing it a little, testing it, and then putting on your site, right?
yeah. The way I suggest is always do it small, so like make little changes to the existing one. Try to copy it off of schema.org. Use their search function. Find out that for lawyers, there's going to be like they need these fields or these are fields available. So you can see which is available. Try to copy an example and then just put it in a Google Doc and slowly make copies to it, like just little bits, and test it out each time because um, you want to make sure that you're not breaking it before you like don't make a change the whole thing and then test it because you will get very frustrated very quickly.
Now, um, schema is one of those things that we do for SEO
Mhm.
because, well, it's an essential thing, don't you think, for SEO? Like um, it can really help you, your website, right?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely one that if you do it, there's even a tool we have that's really helpful for just it's a generator, it's a schema generator, and you just fill in the form fields and it will print out the code for you, and it could be a fast, easy way for your business to have a little bit of an edge.
And
Um,
is that free, Phelan?
yes, it is. It's a nice free tool. And technicalseo.com/tools.
They
Uh,
also have Merkle on there, which is one of my favorites. Which is
Yeah, that's the technical SEO tools. That's
yeah,
the
yeah.
this domain. It's an SEO company that's called Merkle that built a bunch of these little free tools that it's really useful for getting started with kind of learning how schema works. Um, and then also they have a VPN search, but that's for a comment for another
Merkle
time.
SEO. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So, I think one of the this is gonna sound so geeky. One of the things that really excites me is when you are searching on Google and you see in the search engine results, and not including recipes, but in the SEO portion of the search engine results pages, you see like star ratings or stars in the little snippets that aren't paid for, right? I don't
yeah.
know. I just, for some reason, I always get really excited. I'm always like, oh, how'd they get that done? That is something I'm going to get done at some point, right? But that's
Yeah.
interesting schema because the your star rating changes over time, so it would have to be something that's dynamic, right?
Yeah, that's why I would recommend if you're doing anything like reviews that is very dynamic, try and get a tool because it will update that for you as you get more reviews. And because it'll have not only the total count, but also your average of the stars. And so having both of those on there, they're both super important factors, right? You want to know that it's you're going to trust a place that has 100 5-star reviews versus one 5-star review. So it's
Mm.
important to have this dynamically updated. And there's a lot of good tools out there that do that. But yeah, you want to make sure you have that. Um, the other part that's is good about that part is you can also have things like last updated, right? So it's a little bit of schema that you can put in that says like, oh, this page has been updated since
Mm.
2019 when it was first written to be reflect the 2022, like best Shopify apps in 2022, something like that, where you can show freshness and you can show that it actually has been updated. Um, So
And you
little
can show
things like
that in
that.
schema. What else can you show in schema?
So, these good questions. So
You're welcome.
the
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was like, I did not think of like all the random examples you could have, but so one that's really useful, an example, a real world example that we had with the client, is that they have a knowledge panel, and knowledge panels are generated automatically by Google, just or like your organic site links. Like you don't really have much control over when they get created, but they have an error in theirs. One of the fields it has someone that didn't wasn't actually involved with their organization, and so we needed to remove them. So there's you can ask for an edit. The other thing to do, according to Google, and I'll leave a link to the that goes into the knowledge panels, is that you can do the schema and fix that field on your website so
Or
that when
try
people
to.
or try to. Yes, there's nothing guaranteed because this is Google and we are all at their whims. Like anything to do with SEO, we just pray to the Google gods and they may bestow upon us their bounty or not.
Love the Google God. Love.
Yeah, pretty much. It's yeah. So there are definitely some. There's
Well,
no guarantees in SEO, but that one is it'll definitely help, and it's according to their official documentation.
right. Yeah. And so they have lots of different schema for like, so you were saying, with the lawyer, there would be schema for or local business, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then there would be schema for possibly a lawyer and then maybe the type of lawyer even, right?
Yeah, so they generally they have like a kind of hierarchy, kind of like in biology where it's like the genus and then it's like it goes down to like how it branches out the whole family tree of how schema is very similar where it has like big types like a how to. So that's another type is like a how to. You show
Mm.
each step. FAQ, that's another really good one. Sorry, I'm just now remembering them as like we're going through that so FAQs, and when you go on like Google search engine results page, you'll see underneath like it says it'll have like the page title, meta description, and then there'll be some questions that was generated by FAQ schema.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's beautiful because so that creates site link extensions, which somebody asked about in the group this week. Actually, if you don't know the group Cyberpunk Geeks Marketing Mixer, we're in there right now. If you're not in there, join us. Anyway, back to the programming. Um,
Yeah,
I love I love seeing those site link extensions, and they also have schema for video and
yep,
schema for images. And if you want to rank, so we work with this wonderful company and they do spectacular like huge events, stuff like projection mapping, and so they rank for images and video a lot, right? And
yeah,
so if you do schema on that site, because you want to rank in the image, like in the search engine results pages for just images and just video, right?
yeah,
Versus
exactly. Oh, and one other thing with that schema, once you are starting to get found for it and it is showing up as like, different sections, you will see in your search console under a tab called enhancements, you'll see if you have
mm,
products or if you have logos, these are all schema types. They'll show up and they'll also let you know if there's any errors when they crawled over it in Search Console. So this could be a way for you to see if you are getting that and then if you got to fix any of those as well. And yeah, it's just to close the loop when you asked about the lawyers. So you would have a local business, and then under that local business, it'll be legal services. So it's a local
mhm.
business that offers legal services, and so you can find these subcategories. Just like how you said, you can have a service professional, and under that could be a lawyer, and under that could be a estate planning lawyer. It's those kind of get more granular, more detailed. And of course, that's just going to help you with Google because the more specific to a person's query, well, that's just helping you out as well.
Yeah. So, and I mean, when you get right into it, although, it probably takes a couple of years in an SEO career to learn schema, it isn't that hard. And although it seems maybe overwhelming at the beginning, it's not that hard. And it can be fun, right? I mean, who doesn't want to try to show up for better things and actually have their clients' sites working properly in the search engine results pages? Um, I mean, this
Yeah.
is where we're all aiming to. When I started my career, couple things I dreamed about, places I wanted to get to schema. So I wanted to learn schema. That was high on my list. So when we actually got to that stage, it was exciting. That and scripts, which is a
Mm,
Google Ads thing. Well, I think
yeah.
it's just a
Uh,
Google Ads thing.
it's just Google Ads. I
Um,
don't know anyone else that does it.
and that's part of an automation process where you're using code to tell the computer to do something. So similar to schema, maybe, but like totally
Way more intense than
totally
schema.
different.
Schema is much more passive, and it's just like a little bit of text. Like
Mm.
the Google ad script is much more like you're actually writing code. Uh,
Can you do me
but
a favor?
yes.
Can you explain to me um, why it's important for Shopify sites, or for not just Shopify, but for websites, e-commerce sites, why schema would be really important and what it does
Well,
for you?
so we are. I did cover some of that at the top of just the organic, the Google Merchant Center, getting your products approved in there, so that you can both have them for free listings as well as paid shopping ads, as well as dynamic retargeting ads. So, person visited your black shoe page, you can show the black shoe page again, and
Mm,
they can see that exact product that they saw. The other thing, as we also talked about, super important, reviews, getting your product reviews, getting those up there. How many, you as a business, say you're a local business, you want to have your Google My Business reviews on there. You want to have your product reviews so that when people are doing comparisons, because that's obviously a huge factor. Um, Reviews are really big with that part. Another one, we also kind of touched on how to's, right? Like,
mm,
content is going to become king, especially for e commerce businesses. Like, teaching people about what to do with the products that you're selling. Example
mm.
for me that comes to mind is one e commerce site I really like. They do everything with fermentation. So they have like how to's on how to make kombucha, how to make your own SCOBY, how to
Oh,
maintain your
nice.
SCOBY. These are all how to's that all naturally lead into the product page because you
And
see,
what is
oh,
the
hey,
product?
pardon?
What is the product that they're selling?
Like kombucha starting kits.
Okay.
So they,
Oh, okay. So are they selling like the SCOBY and stuff, even though they're teaching
yep,
you how to make them? Ah, that's brilliant. I like
yeah,
that.
so they can say, "Hey, you can make it, or you can buy a starter kit from us to get you going because you'll need a little SCOBY starter to get this going." And then they have the helpful kit, and then it naturally leads into it. So that's having your how-tos with your videos that are going to be on there. Obviously, YouTube out of the box does a lot of their own schema. So YouTube
Mm.
videos almost always show up when you look up anything video related. Uh, so they are preferencing them. We did work with someone who did actually get onto the video reel, and
Ah, yeah,
got
yeah.
a call from Google because they did all the right things. They had all the schema that was video related, so they showed up, and it didn't have a little YouTube ad; it had their business name instead. And
Yeah,
so,
they were ranking. Yeah, it was
yeah,
very interesting, um, and very hard to do. We also, I
yes,
mean, it's very interesting the different companies we've worked with and how this has affected them. So, if you're an SEO, one of the things is people always want to rank for specific keywords versus just getting more traffic to your site. Both are relevant in my opinion.
yeah.
Getting more relevant traffic to your site is really important, and schema can really help with that because it helps Google understand what your site is about, or even Bing, or what does Janet use? She uses
Brave.
Brave. um
Though just to clarify, Brave is a browser, not a search engine.
yeah.
Though they are making a search engine function. But yes, for the moment, they're just a browser. But yes, Yandex would be another one because Yandex was actually the company that came up with Schema. So they, and then what they did is they partnered with all the other search engines to work together to find because there's no point in everyone having their own schema because that would be stupid and wasteful
Okay,
time.
so let's stop and take a step back here. So all search engines use read the same lang read the tell me, what do they
Yeah,
do?
so they all work together to make sure that there was a standard, so that if you did your schema, it would work. You know, the crawl would work fine with Bing, as it would for Google, as it would for Yandex, as it would for any other search engine that is out there. So what they would
Mhm.
do is they made it standard so that you only had to do it one time, and then all the browsers were able to read it. And so it makes your life a lot easier because they only have one implementation that you need to do.
This reminds me of, back in the day when they had like all the different phones, like many, many different phones. And, um, they'd have to make, if they made a program, they'd have to make it for like for iOS and for BlackBerry and for all the things and the stuff. And that, like, I mean, the search engines could have done that, right? You could have had to have, I think they're, not having a similar language that they all turn to or similar protocols makes things very messy, right?
Yeah.
And the internet doesn't function well then.
Well, yeah, it was the internet's the way it was designed in a lot of ways is a lot of standards, a lot of things working the same across all the web, so that all the servers can talk to each other well. And it makes a lot of sense to have it be very consistent, so that there aren't surprises, and especially if you're doing stuff like web design as well, because we've had issues with that in the past. Internet Explorer, they were just an absolute. Internet Explorer was notorious for being the one that would just screw up your CSS, and you'd have to like do it all over again.
Right. That's
Um,
like email marketing. That's one of the problems with email marketing
yeah,
is that it looks different on every
yeah.
device.
There is no standard. That's the problem. Is email protocols, though they are the were the first thing that was created as part of the protocols on top of the internet, or the yeah, I guess the internet, because it was before the web. The
Mm.
email protocols haven't been updated since then. And yeah, yeah, which is why it was a big deal from a technical standpoint. The hey email and that whole debacle of the guys at Basecamp, um, and what they had
Uh,
done is
that's
because
a
they had
story for another day,
that
but
is
you'd have
a
to
difference.
explain
But
that.
yeah, but it has to do again with what it relates to is protocols and them having being standardized or just ignored and not maintained, and so you have a situation where someone goes to try and change that, which
Yeah.
is pretty
Now,
interesting.
answer me this. If
Yeah.
if I was a business owner,
Hmm.
or a marketer just starting out, and this kind of interested in me, yeah. I was
Yeah.
interested in this. Um, where would I go to learn more so I didn't, so I could take a step-by-step approach and not get overwhelmed and find what I needed to do to learn what I needed to learn?
That's a good question. The problem is there's a lot of disparate, like, I learned from a lot of sources. It's not the same as like Tag Manager, where there's only, I could say, rattle off like 2 3 YouTube channels, like follow these guys, go to their
Mm,
blog. Schema is a little tougher to do. I do have a really good place to get started, which is that the Merkle schema generator, because it's very simple. You just fill in the form fields, it generates the code for you. You can kind of get a feel for how it works, and honestly, it's pretty straightforward to get started, because they ask you business name, you input the business name.
yeah.
What's your phone number? Put in the phone number. Like, so, if I was to start anywhere, I would start there, and get that put on your website of your business.
Would you tell people to go to schema.org to look up documentation or schemas or learn about it? I mean,
No, not right at the start. Not it definitely, I would start with the schema generator first, so you can get a feel for how the code looks and what you're
yeah,
putting in. Once you're comfortable with that part, then I would go to do not go to schema.org first. It is
that's where I went first.
yeah,
Maybe that's why
it
I got
is
overwhelmed.
yeah, it is the driest, most poorly laid out website I've seen in, like, it has not come out of 1998. It is like an ancient website that just
You know what's interesting about that site? I just have to say, it looks like their hyperlinked texts, they bold text and it's all hyperlinked. So Google released a couple months ago that our highlighted text, bolded text helps you rank higher. So now you'll see lots of sites with like the bolded text everywhere. Anyway, they're doing that, but but they're old school. I think it's a little cleaner than I used to think it was.
Yeah, it's not the worst site, but that's why I'm saying start with the schema generator to get a feel for what you are looking for and how it integrates everything. Because if you just start at schema.org, you'll get overwhelmed and confused, and
Yeah.
rightfully so, because it's just not a very user friendly website that way. Just to close out, because we're coming up on time, there was one thing that I did want to talk about. Last year, I was much more convinced as crawl budgets were going away that this schema would be a really good solution to how what to do to make sure that you're ranking higher. Now it's shifted a little bit because there's actually been, so it's interesting. We're going to have to talk about it at some point, Pip. Um, and what it is index now. Apparently, there's a new protocol that was written by Bing and Yandex that you can submit a page and then it will index it in real time. That's kind of what it. So this apparently has worked really well for new websites or new pieces of content that you want to get ranked.
In the
So
index?
in Bing as well.
Oh,
So
interesting.
Bing Webmasters has a portal. So apparently the two of them have been working together, and Google's been cautiously optimistic about doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they've been watching. You know how Google does that sometimes, and so it's from SEOs that we're following in the industry, like Barry Schwartz. They've been fairly positive about it.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
yeah, so they so far they like the tool. So it's looking like that protocol is the index now will serve the same functionality to help you with ranking. So this is more about adding benefits of, like the reviews and just adding extra bits so that you can show more relevance to whoever's searching through Google. So it's,
Very helpful.
I mean, it's definitely there's studies that have been shown that adding this additional information also increases your click through rate because people are getting more information right there on the page, so that
Yeah,
increases click through rates. So that's
which is
something to
what
keep
we
in mind.
want.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not so much helping you rank faster as it is helping you be more relevant to that search and helping people decide to click on your link.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that's just something I wanted to address because in my research, it's definitely shifted from even a year ago and how that all tied together.
Wow. You mean digital marketing changes fast?
Well, in SEO, it doesn't change at all. It's consistent.
And you get to learn new things all the time. So if you're interested, I mean, okay, right before we go, we had a client yesterday who came to us with a QR code. Like, how do you measure this? Um, and so we're like, oh, that's interesting. So there are some things we can do in Google Analytics to measure QR codes. So digital marketing, never boring, never. If you're
Yeah.
joining us today and you're on, so we do stream this to our business pages, and we also stream in a Facebook group called Cyberpunk Geeks Marketing Mixer, and it's where a bunch of us marketers hang out, talk about marketing, try to help each other grow and learn. And so if you haven't joined us, join us there. And Phelan, you're going to share some links, right?
Yep.
After this. And next week, do we know what next week is?
Uh.
Ooh, I know. I know. It's this month in the world of marketing. So we talk
Yeah.
about all the updates in the space, search, social, and websites. And we give you the rundown of what's going on, what you need to know so you don't miss out. You don't have to pay attention to everything. Anyway, we will see you next week. Got to
Yep.
go.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.